In the beginning, we were wanderers. We didn't wander because we were trying to find ourselves. We wandered because we were hungry. We wandered with the seasons to places with more abundant roots, nuts, and berries. We followed the animal migrations because that's where the stakes were. What passed for shelter was what you could find when you needed it. We would not stay in the same place for more than a few weeks because we'd forage and hunt the yard to nothing in no time. Our stomachs would force us to start wandering anew. The only power source an unaided human has are muscles. First our own, and later that of the handful of animals that we could tame. Starvation, disease, and injury were common and had the unfortunately high likelihood of proving lethal. And any provided by nature root or rabbit that you ate was one that someone else would not be eating. So sure, we lived in harmony with nature, which is another way of saying we tended to beat the crap out of our neighbors whenever we saw them. Whoever won the fight ate the loser. Then, one miraculous day, we started something new and wondrous that made life less violent and less precarious, and our world fundamentally changed. We started gardening in our poo. The sedentary farming revolution. Since humans are omnivores, their poo boasts among the densest concentrations of nutrients in the natural world. Since humans know where their poo gets deposited, let's call it inventorying, and securing fresh supplies was a simple process. Human poo proved to be one of the best fertilizer and growth mediums not just in the pre-civilized world, but right up until the mass introduction of chemical fertilizers in the mid-19th century, and in some parts of the world, even today. The Great Poo Breakthrough, more commonly referred to as humanity's first true technological suite, sedentary agriculture, also introduced humans to the first rule of geopolitics: location matters. And which locations matter more changes with the technology of the day. The first geography of success, that of the hunter-gatherer era, was all about range and variety. Good nutrition meant being able to tap multiple types of plants and animals. No one likes moving house, so we wouldn't relocate until an area had been picked clean. Since we tended to clear out an area pretty quickly, and because hunger would mercilessly nudge us to greener pastures, we needed to be able to easily relocate. We tended to concentrate, therefore, in areas with a great deal of climatic variety in a fairly dense footprint. Mountain foothills proved particularly popular because we could access several different climatic zones in a relatively short amount of horizontal distance. Another popular choice was where the tropics bled into the savanna, so we could tap game-rich savannas in the wet season and the plant-rich rainforests in the dry. Ethiopia was particularly favored by hunter-gatherers as it blended savanna, rainforest, and vertical striations into a single neat package. But that was utter crap for poo farming. Getting all the food you needed from one place required a single largest chunk of flattish ground, not the sort of spread or variety that could sustain hunter-gatherers. The seasonality of movement of the hunter-gatherer diet was largely incompatible with the constant attention requirements of crops, while the seasonal nature of harvesting crops was largely incompatible with the needs of humans' desires to eat year-round. And just because you were staying put in farming didn't mean your neighbors were. Without proper disincentives, they'd tend to forage right through your garden, and you'd be out months of work and back into starvation mode. Many tribes started farming only to abandon it as unworkable. Squaring these particular circles not only required that we learn a different way of feeding ourselves, it also forced us to find a different sort of geography from which we could source the food. We needed a climate with a sufficient lack of seasonality so crops could be grown and harvested year-round, thus eliminating the starving season. We needed consistent water flows so that those crops could be relied upon to sustain us year in, year out. We needed places where nature provided good, sturdy, natural fences so that the neighbors couldn't just walk in and help themselves to our labor fruits. We needed a different geography of success. The only places on Earth that sport all three criteria are rivers that flow through low latitude and low altitude deserts. As any farmer or gardener knows, if it doesn't rain, you're screwed. Yet if you set up shop on the banks of a river, you'll never run out of water for irrigation. Low-latitude regions get long, sun-filled days all year. The lack of seasonal variation enables multi-cropping. More crops at more times means less hunger, and hunger sucks. High-elevation rivers flow fast and straight and cut canyons into the landscape as they go. In contrast, low-altitude rivers are more likely to meander through flat zones, bringing their water into contact with more potential farmland. As an added bonus, when a braided river overflows its banks with the spring floods, it leaves behind a nice, thick layer of nutrient-rich sediment. Silt is a great poo enhancer. Being in a desert region keeps those pesky foraging neighbors at bay. No sane hunter-gatherer is going to get to the edge of a desert, gaze into the endless mass of heat ripples, and dreamily opine, "I bet there are some awesome rabbits and rutabagas that-a-way." Especially in an era when loose sandals were the most durable footwear available. Rivers also hold a couple of less obvious advantages that are just as critical. The first of them is transport. Moving stuff around isn't all that easy. Assuming you have access to an asphalt or concrete road, the sort of road that didn't even exist until the early 20th century, it takes about 12 times as much energy to move things on land as compared to water. In the early years of the first millennia BCE, when a top-notch road was gravel, that energy disconnect was more likely in the neighborhood of 100 to 1. We didn't even get cobblestones until the 3rd century BCE. Having a slow-moving desert river running through the hearts of our first homelands enabled humans to relocate everything from where it was in surplus to where it was in demand. Labor distribution enabled early humans to exploit more fields and so increase plantings and food supplies, and to do so in places that didn't need to be within a short walk of where we lived. Such advantages were often the difference between spectacular success, that is, everybody doesn't starve, and equally spectacular failure, everyone does starve. There was also the not even remotely insignificant issue of security. Soldier distribution via the waterways enabled us to